So today we're joined by Billy Green, and Billy Green is going to tell us a whole bunch of stories basically throughout his entire life. He's going to give us lots to think about. So without further ado, let me introduce Billy. Billy, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Didn't sleep much last night. I was up all night, man. So I'm a little tired today.
I feel that. I feel that. I only had 4 hours sleep myself, so
Yeah, I got about 2.5 hours, and I had my mother staying this weekend. She has cancer, so like I'm part caretaker, so like I was up and down with her all night. Besides the point. So yeah, I can jump into some stories if you'd like.
fantastic. Yeah, I'm all ears. What about you, Cats? Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I've got my pen, got my paper, and we'll see what I can make of these. I'm looking forward to them. So, yeah, thanks for this, Billy. But start wherever you want to start.
Well, let me give it like a little background information because it's complicated because like when I think about my life story and like as I'm writing my book, like when I was in college, they would say that your earliest memory couldn't be before 3 years old. And I can remember my younger brother, who is now passed on, um, my younger brother, the day he was born, and I was only 14 months old, like so like I've always had this very intense memory, and I was like this really dorky. It was always just me and him. There were six of us. We were like really poor family, blah blah blah. Lived in the backwoods of Pennsylvania, in the United States, and that's when I had my first paranormal experience. And I can remember my first paranormal experience. I didn't know if it was real. Actually, this would be my second paranormal experience. My first paranormal experience happened in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Um, and to this day, like, I don't know if it was a dream. I don't know if it was real. But when I reflect back on it, it feels so real when I do deep meditations, like, 'cause I'm really big into meditation. So, my first story, I guess, so to speak, my first real experience was when I was in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, which is a military base. Um, it's a military base that sits off of, it's in North Carolina. And I can remember waking up in the middle of the night and my whole family waking up, like all of us. And like we were all in like this trance. And we go outside and it's like this whole neighborhood and we're like holding hands in this weird, like, thing, and we're staring at this object in the sky. It's like this perfect round circle. It'd be like a perfect circle in the sky, and it had this bright dot in the middle, but you could see the stars like in the middle of the circle, and then you could see the stars on the outer brinks of it. So that was like my beginning of to like questioning life, so to speak, because nobody remembered it the next day. I remember vividly like being like, "Yo, what happened last night?" No, everyone's like, "You're crazy, Billy. You're crazy. You're crazy." I was like, "I know this happened. I know this happened." Uh, like something had overtaken all our bodies, and hundreds of people in this neighborhood on a military base. Um, so that was like the beginning of my kind of the beginning of my journey of like self knowledge and self seeking. Even though I was very very young, but I was a gifted child as well. Um,
Can I just ask you before you go any further?
yeah,
You said at the start that you first remember your brother being born when you were 14 months old, and then you had these hundreds of people that also saw this event, but then the next day they forgot about it, and you were the only person that was able to still recall what actually happened the night before. Would you think that
yes.
your mind then in some way is wired a little bit different to the majority of people? In other words, that you can somehow have this ability to recall things that other people would just forget, or you're not that easily to be brainwashed, let's say.
Oh, most definitely, man. I've been a spiritual anarchist, so to speak. um, so to speak. Like when I say that, I mean like always questioning. Like like I never felt right in church. Like something didn't feel right in church. And I have stories of paranormal. Mine's like empathic slash paranormal slash damn, this shit's real. Excuse my language. It's not in my mind. And it took me 20 years to figure that out. Um, literally 20 years to be like, okay, this is real. Um, I thought I was crazy for a long time, but so, um, if you want me to continue talking, like
Yeah, by all
about
means.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Okay, so like, so like my parents, they divorced when I was about 2 years old, and that's two or three, 3 or 4. It's hard to remember. And we moved to Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and there were 6 of us. We all lived in the same house together, and 5 of us stayed in this one room. Um, but I can remember my younger brother. I remember this so vividly. Like he used to look at me, and he'd be like, we'd be like in like this. I guess you'd call it a pen. I don't know what it was. It was like this kind of like a playpen, but it was bigger. That my mom would put us into. And he used to point at me and he used to say, "Don't you remember when we used to be big? Don't you remember when we used to be big?" And I'd be like, "John, we were never big." I was like, "We were never big." He goes, "We used to be adults just like them." Or not adults. He didn't say adults, but he's like, "We used to be just like them. Don't you remember?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." Um, and then where we were living in Pennsylvania, I can remember going outside and sitting at the stars and just questioning the universe for hours. And I had this epiphany. I was like, why am I here? Like, what? Why am I here? The questioning began. Why am I here? Why have I been put back on this earth? And I don't know why I had that thought. I never understood why I had that thought. And it just came to me. It was like, why am I back on this earth? Um, and that was it was very intense. It was a very intense moment because I learned more as a child than I did throughout all my investigations, paranormal investigations. And it gets really deep, man. And so that was like the beginning. So do you have any questions you'd like to ask or before?
I haven't got any myself. What about you, Cats?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So you're talking essentially when your brother was saying, "Do you remember when we used to be big?" You sort of alluding to like a reincarnation type event.
Yes, yes. And I didn't understand it at the time. Um, until I was much older and got into transcendental meditation and deeper meditational states of mind, to where that's a constant state of being. Um, so go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think there's a bit of lag. Did he bring up any detail about any of the past lives?
No, no, he did not. But I do remember vividly looking at a TV milk commercial. And I saw this guy drinking this milk, and I was like, man, I'm gonna look just like him when I'm older. And I remember this thought. I was like, that's what I'm gonna look like when I'm older. And I'll be damned if I'm not like a spitting image of that guy. You know what I mean? Excuse my language again. I apologize.
You're right.
Being a chef so long, I tend to cuss, so I'll try to keep that at bay. Just stop me.
Have you heard of Dr. Ian Stevenson?
Ian Stevenson?
Mm.
See the guy from Harvard who did the beat?
The University of Virginia School of Medicine he worked at.
No. The guy I
He,
looked in was from Harvard. He was on
was it,
Oprah.
oh,
All
it
sorts of
might
stuff.
Well, he's been dead for a while. This guy, I think he died before Oprah come around, or be quite old. But he was like a really well respected psychiatrist. Like I think he was the chair of psychiatry at the university where the psychiatry was taught. He was really well respected across all of academia, and he studied over 3,000 cases of children saying they've been reincarnated. And even at the end of his life, after studying it, he wouldn't rule it out. He said he genuinely thinks that the only possible explanation for some of the things he saw was that these children have been reincarnated. And he was a really well respected psychiatrist. So I've always found those stories interesting.
They are interesting, and it's funny because like I've done a lot of studying with like Graham Hancock or Greg Braden and Dr. Stephen Greer and all them alien guys or ancient civilizations, so to speak, and that's been part of my journey as well, the study of that, along with parapsychology and other things. So yeah, reincarnation is like I don't know if it's soul recycling. I don't know what it is, but I do believe that could be very possible. Or it could be simulation theory. It could be string theory. It could be the constant rebirth, so to speak. Like Elon Musk talks a lot about simulation theories, things like that, and how it's just a big computer simulation, and that this is just another reality, but where it's based reality. So, and that there's clicks in the matrix, just like the movie. But that's a whole other subject that does tie into paranormal events in my mind, in some ways. But I'm not concrete in all my beliefs. Like, I'm still learning, so to speak. Still learning and staying open-minded and teachable, because I do not have all the answers for why my mind is the way it is. And as we progress in this story, you'll see what I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'm all ears waiting for the rest of this. I'm looking forward to this.
All right, let's see here. Okay, so I was Mount Olive, North Carolina. I was about 9 years old. Okay, let me rewind a little bit. My mother, who's actually in the other room, my great grandmother, my great great grandmother, they all came from France, and they were gypsies, and they read tarot cards and playing cards. And long story short, I got my first tarot card deck, which is an influence, which influenced me in some ways. I got my first tarot card deck when I was 6 years old. And then I got I would sit there with tarot card decks and shuffle them and play with regular cards like 24/7. I was the black sheep of the family, second to the youngest, and I wore these big old glasses. I was in astronomy books, science books, and I was always looking for answers because what happened to me, like I can remember sitting in Mount Olive, North Carolina. My parents were split up, and on my mother's side of the family, you have to understand, my mother's side of the family were very, 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 very poor, like below poverty. So I would go spend the summers with my dad, and my dad was like this hardcore. He had just retired from the military. Just moved back to North Carolina, got remarried. So we'd go spend the summers with him, and he took us to this church, Mount Olive, North Carolina. And I walked into this church, and I felt this energy that I've never felt in my life. I was like, what is it? Was like, it like overtook my body, so to speak. Like I could feel like energy pouring out of my hands. So I'm sitting there in this church, and the preacher starts talking, and I fall asleep. But I'm not asleep. I go into like that second stage of sleep, the spindle sleep. And then I have this light come over me. uh, this beautiful light just come over. And I'm not a Christian, far from it. Had this light come over me, and it was just this comforting feeling. And all of a sudden, I could hear the preacher, and I could understand everything he was saying to me. And I was like, it was so strange, man, so strange. It was like I could understand the Bible, and like my mother, she instilled, always pray at night, blah blah blah. Ask Jesus into your heart, this and that. So here I am faced with this like experience where I'm questioning everything. I'm like, okay, so this voice tells me not to be afraid. There was a voice, and it's like, don't be afraid. You do not need to be afraid of God. So that was like that. So having that experience, I remember telling my parents, and I remember telling them that there was a war coming because I saw it in like this vision type thing I had. And then they had the Iraqi war back in '92. And this was 6 months before the war even happened. So my stepmom still reminds me of this to this day. She's like, how did you know? How did you know that there was going to be a war? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. So that's the empathic psychic stuff, but that's not the paranormal stuff. The paranormal stuff gets crazy. So any questions before I move on?
Just you mentioned, hearing that message that, don't be afraid of God, etc. Did that turn you into religious for any time, any particular time? What effect did that have on you?
What it did, it broke the fear of God. Okay, so in my belief, what I believe that you cannot be in tune with the universe if you fear a higher power. If you fear a higher power, because if you fear a higher power, you fear yourself. You fear your own internal capabilities of what you can truly become and ascend to on a spiritual level. And I believe that was, at the time, I believe that was a message that was given to me for things that would happen 15 years later in my life. It's like this timeline as I look at it, and I'm like, wow, everything just connects. All the experiences, each experience connects to one another, to another stepping stone to my journey of self-awareness. So there was that. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's good. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on. The night my grandmother died, I was 12 years old. A little bit of my story, my mother, she was pretty bad at the time on drugs, and I don't want to get too much into it, but like we ended up homeless, in the back of a car. Me and my younger brother, my other brothers were scattered all over the place. So it's just me and my younger brother. And so my dad ended up taking us in, and my other brother lived with my dad. And my other ones were they were just all older, like 16, 17. They just went and did their own thing. So at 12 years old, I had this dream. Call it a dream, call it a vision, call it what you want. I don't know. But I'll never forget it, man, because this has happened more than once, and I'll get into that. My grandmother came to me the night she died in her dream, and she's surrounded by this light, and she's got like these brown khakis on, this blue shirt, just like she would wear normally. And I wasn't really close to my grandmother, so to speak, even though she did teach me to read cards, but like we kind of phased out over the years. My life was crazy. We moved around a lot, so like I didn't get to see her a whole lot. But she came to me in my dream, and she was like, yo, I need you to go to the funeral, and I need you to tell your mother that I'm in a better place and that everything's okay. And I'm like, okay. So I wake up, and me and my brother shared a room in my dad's house. So I wake up out of this dream, and it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was like, damn, that was a crazy dream. I wonder if my grandmother's okay. And I went back to sleep. And when I went back to sleep, my dad wakes us up 3 hours later. He's like, hey, pack your bags. We're going to Asheville, North Carolina. I was like, well, why are we going to Asheville, North Carolina? And then he broke the news to us that my grandmother had died. So she had visited me the night she died, before she had died. I mean, like, what the hell? Like, before I had any knowledge of it. It was like, so that began that really, like, stuck with me, was like, okay, like, I'm different. I'm different from other people. I'm totally different. I felt so alone at that time in my life. And that's when I don't know if it's okay to talk about it, but I started experimenting with things. So that happened. And you have to understand that I'm going back and forth between my mom, who had gotten her life together at that point, living in this tiny little trailer, but my brother-in-law, and what you would consider a warlock, so to speak, um, was a huge influence in my life, and huge influence in my life because he was having me study out, like, I would tell him about these things that were happening. He goes, look, man, you need to read these books. And they were these books from these spellcraft books from like the 1600s. Albert Magnus, Aleister Crowley, I can't remember them all. My dad ended up finding them and burning them, actually, because he's like super religious. Um, so, you know, at that age, I was unaware of the power of the occult. Like how powerful that shit is and how it controls nations, literally. Um, so like I started with this whole, like, I'm gonna find the answers I'm looking for. Why did my grandmother come to me in my dream? Why did this happen to me? Um, and my younger brother, he used to crawl in bed with me, scared to death that somebody was going to kill him all the time. He's like, somebody's coming to kill us, Billy. Someone's coming to kill us. And we were teenagers, like teenagers at this point. Um, so, high school moves on. I'm like this, I'm a stoner, you know. It was my relief. I don't know if it's okay to say on your channel or not. Um, and I'll be straight up honest, like, addiction took me down a path. And I've been clean a very, very, very long time. So it was just a phase in life, where I experimented with pretty hardcore drugs for a good period of time. Um, just blocking out the white noise. Just blocking out the white noise. When I say white noise, it's because I hear, I feel, I hear, I feel things that other people can't feel. I see pregnancies before they happen, or I'll look at a woman and be like, yo, you're pregnant. And they'll be like, how do you know this? Before they even know they're pregnant, and I've done that so many times, it freaks people out. So I learned early on, keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself. It freaks people out. They start screaming, blah, blah, blah. Or when I'll see, like, spirits around people or dark energy around them. Like, my mother tells me stories of how when I was a little kid, stuff I can't remember, how that I would point at people and run and be like, that person's evil. That person's evil. That person's evil. And I have so many stories, man. It's like so hard to wrap it all together. So that's just like the beginning ages of my life, and it really didn't get crazy until I'd say about 18 or 19 years old. That's when it really took off. Like my mind really opened. 21, an ice cube changed my life.
An ice cube, did you say?
It's
Do
not.
what?
Did you say an ice cube?
An ice cube completely changed my life, and everything I thought and believed about life would change everything. And I say this because I had gone to this study. Like they had this study for like impasse or whatever it was here in North Carolina. It was down in Raleigh. And my mother took me to it because she knew that like my mother, when I was 16 years old, she told me, she was like, look, Billy, you're the chosen one. I'm like, what the fuck's that supposed to mean? Sorry. What in the world is that supposed to mean? I'm the chosen one. Like, she goes, well, I've been waiting 16 years to tell you that, you know, you're different. And I'm like, okay. And I just shrug it off my shoulders. I don't think too much about it. I'm like, okay, Mom, you're crazy. You're crazy. You know, you're just nuts. But then again, when I was a little kid, I can remember people coming from all over the United States to get readings from my mom, card readings. I can remember sitting in a banister watching her tell people their birthdays and them freaking out and running out the house. Like, stuff she couldn't have possibly have known. This is the time before the internet. This is the early 89. This is like 87, 88. And she would tell people, I can remember watching my mother do these things, and I'm like, how is my mom? How? How did she know these? How does she know these things about people? So that was an influence. So I had to take whatever influence in my spiritual journey out of the equation to find fact from fiction. What's reality? What's not reality? And I have written book after book or notebook after notebook trying to decipher like what's real, what's not. Because I'm a skeptic. Like I am a skeptic and I'm not a skeptic. And I'll get into why I'm not. And I'll get into the real paranormal stuff. I just need you to understand the background. So
Well, can I ask you, how did you feel when your mum told you that you were the chosen one? How did that make you feel when you heard that?
at first I was like, well, that makes sense. I was like, that makes sense. That's why I saw, you know, that bright light in the field, in the cornfield. That was another paranormal experience. That's why I saw the hanging man, or, um, that's why I remember seeing this. I don't know if you want to call it angel or bright light or what, just this ball of light in a cornfield. The same cornfield in Old 36 PA, the same place where like everything began. It's like everything began there, like when I was starting to able to really comprehend what life was. And like I said, I was gifted with like a really high IQ too, so that didn't help any. And I was like, well, maybe I'm schizophrenic, As I got older, I would think that. I was like, well, maybe I'm schizo. Maybe it's all in my head, just maybe I'm crazy. But then I had this study done, and there was this doctor named Hunter. Hold on, Hunter. Can't think of his last number, but his name was Hunter. I called him Hunter. And then there was this therapist, Tom Burgess. There was a whole slew of doctors, like people doing this study on empaths and all this and that. And they would take me in these rooms and they would be like, okay, tell me what you see about this person. And then I remember looking at this guy I was like, he's a dead man. I was like, he's dying. And he looks perfectly healthy. And I remember this because it freaked them out. It literally freaked the doctors out. They're like, okay, we have a live one here. And I wouldn't find this out until after the study that I was like 98% accurate with every person I encountered, with who they were, what their lifestyles were, even saw the sickness within them. I saw death all around this one person. That was the most powerful thing. When I saw death around this person, I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. And then these doctors come to me afterwards. They're like, dude, you're not crazy, man. You're not crazy. He goes, you're right. Like, and they call me intuitive. The label they gave me was intuitive. Not psychic or any of that. It was, you're just highly intuitive. Perceptive.
Can you tell me what it looks like when you said that you saw death all around this man? What did you see? What gave you the impression that you were looking at death?
I saw darkness, complete black darkness around this individual. Not only was it darkness, but I could see him dying internally, literally.
Is this like an aura? You know, like the aura that you see around people. Are you saying that the aura was black?
When I say black, I wouldn't necessarily. It was death, man. It was like I could feel it. It was like I could feel his pain in a way. And little did I know, and this was disclosed to me after the study, that he was HIV positive. Like, how did I know that? So, like, there's this lady named Jamie. Okay, now I'm 20 years old, and I'm like, I'm a pretty built guy. Like, you probably can't see it, but like, I'm a pretty built guy, and like, I was very active in sports and everything else. And I'm a good looking guy, and you look at me and I look like, I could be on TV or something. You know what I mean? Like, that's what people told me my whole life. Like, you look like you'd be a movie star. You look like this guy. You look like this guy. And, of course, I got the beard now, and you can't really tell, but it's wintertime. So yeah, there was this lady named Jamie, and I remember going through this office with this lady named Jamie, and I made this movement. All I did was move, and she looks at me, and she's like, I just felt the whole room shift, energy shift. Because when I go into deep meditation, like, I can literally take my body and put it in a whole nother place. Take my spirit out of my body. And this took me many, 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 many years to face some dark things. Because people make meditation out to be this, freeing experience, but that's so far from the truth. It's not even close to the truth. You had to face your demons. And unfortunately, my demons for addiction was a heroin addiction that didn't last very long. I wised up really fast, like really fast. 6 months of that, and I was done. I was like, I can't. That's not me. So those are like the psychic empathic experiences. As far as paranormal experiences, that gets even deeper. That gets even crazier. To the point to where, like, I question my sanity. Like, did that really happen? Well, yeah, it really happened, man. You were there. There's no denying the fact that this happened. So, where do I want to start with this story? Okay, so I was 18 years old, and I wasn't on drugs. Like, when I say I was on heroin, like, I had a bone disease in my knees, and they were prescribing me opiates for like 2 years, and then escalated to the neighborhood I lived in to harder drugs, and then I got clean, and I've been clean ever since. It's been 17, 18 years now. Um, so at the time, I was clean, and I moved into my first house, which ironically my sister had lived in. She had rented the same apartment. She had rented this exact same apartment. No, it wasn't an apartment. It was a trailer, and it was with my buddy Ryan, who was also deceased. He's passed away as well. So the first day I walk into this trailer, the very first day I walk into my room, my damn ceiling fan falls to the floor. The second I open the door, the ceiling fan just drops straight to the floor. And I'm like, okay, that was weird. And then I started noticing my radio would cut on randomly. I'd be like, well, why is my radio cutting on in the middle of the night? And this has been a reoccurring thing throughout my whole life, a reoccurring theme throughout my whole life, where my radio will cut on out of nowhere. And the things that it says is the creepy part. So I started having these paranormal experiences. So I called my sister, and she's long gone. She's moved back to the beach. And I'm like, hey, sis, did you ever experience? I didn't want to tell my sister, she's my oldest sister. I'm like, did you ever experience anything paranormal here? She goes, well, yeah, like we made this Ouija board, and we were doing this Ouija session, and the ceiling fan in our master bedroom completely fell. And that was like, whoa. That freaked me out, man. Back then I was scared. I was scared of it. Back then I was terrified of it. And that fear led into, dark energy feeds off fear. So I was like, okay, this is real. Maybe it's not real. Maybe it was just a coincidence. I try to look at it over and over and over. So I remember coming home from work. I was working at Cracker Barrel at the time. I've been a chef for a really long time. I've been a lot of things, actually. Chef, writer, poet, musician, TV show. I've done a lot of cool things in my 20s and some in my 30s. But speaking about experiences, poetry, relating my experiences through poetry and stuff like that. So anyways, I come home from work one day, and there's no one home, and my radio's cut on full blast, and it's playing a Tupac song saying F God, skipping. It's skipping on a CD player. It's saying F God, F God, F God, F God, F God, F God. And I'm like, what the hell? Dude, I got so scared. I was terrified. I was terrified to the point I jumped on my couch, and I had a Dalmatian at the time. Oh, by the way, say hi. This is my doggy. Sorry, just had to show my dog off. Come here, baby. Come here, my sweetie. I'm a dog guy.
Yeah, we don't mind dogs here.
So yeah, so then I remember this Dalmatian sat there, and he would sit there and he would look. His tail was pointed straight, and it would go back and forth, 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 back and forth. His head, like he was watching something pace the room. And I'm like, okay, that's strange, But what happened, I think it was about a week later, something grabbed me by the neck in the middle of my sleep, the back of my neck. You hear people talk about people getting touched in their sleep. Well, something literally grabbed the back of my neck. I don't know. It was like this cold, icy, whatever you want to call it. So I'm like in my head, I'm thinking, okay, so is this real? Is this my imagination? Is this fake? Like I said, I'm a skeptic and I'm questioning everything. Um, so that was that. And I ended up moving out of there. A few months later. And one more story to go with this one in that trailer. So my buddy Hambone, we called him Hambone. He's a big dude. We were like martial artists. Like we did a lot of martial arts together. Um, his mother had passed away in a drunk driving accident. And for my 19th birthday, I was in like this really bad depression. It was, had some pretty tragic stuff happen. I'm not going to get into that, but it was really tragic. Um, and anyway, so my younger brother decides to throw this huge party. And, I'm not drinking or I'm not doing anything at the time, but I'm letting them. We got a whole house full of liquor and they're all partying. And Ryan has this flask, and this flask was given to him by his grandmother, and he sticks it in the cabinet for after the party. So, party dies down. Everyone leaves. There's about 50, 60 people there because I was a pretty popular guy. Uh, yeah, I was a pretty popular guy because of like the martial arts and the weightlifting and all that. Um, Sports, just in general, I was a popular guy. But anyways, that doesn't matter. I felt like I lived 4 different lives like a chameleon. It's like I can't tell people what's really going on. So, anyways, the flask goes missing. This flask completely disappears. So we put the word out on the street. Yo, who stole the flask? It was Ryan's grandmother's. We got to get it back to him. Ryan's older. He's like 22. And when it was about 2 months later, we go to his mother's graveyard. He's like, hey man, he's half drunk. He's like about piss drunk. And he goes up. It's way late at night. It's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So I take him to the graveyard to speak at his grandmother's grave. So we go. He does that. He comes back to the car. We go back to my house. We open up my cabinet, and right there is sitting the missing flask. I mean, I'm telling you, we tore this house apart. I mean, there is no explanation. It makes absolutely no sense. I still can't wrap my head around it to this day because I'm talking, we had people looking. We had so many people looking. I mean, we tore this place apart. Couches, cabinets, refrigerators, under things. And here it is, the night of the anniversary of his mother's death, this flask appears. Now, I've never been a big believer in inanimate objects disappearing and reappearing, Not really. Like, that was the only time I've ever experienced anything like that. So I was like, you want to talk about getting chills all over your body? That gave me chills all over my body, like to my toes, and I was terrified. I was like, this isn't right. This isn't right. So that's the story of the missing flask. There is no explanation. I mean, like, I wish I had an explanation to debunk that, but that started my journey into parapsychology. So, yeah, because after witnessing what I witnessed, I was like, there's something to this. I wouldn't watch movies. I wouldn't watch horror movies. I wouldn't watch any of those things. Anything that might influence my mind to where you know, I needed to know what was real and what wasn't real. I needed to know. Um, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, man. Like literally. Um, so any questions before I move on? Anything y'all want to ask?
No, I'm gonna say so. It's been a long road for you, and obviously lots and lots and lots of things have happened. You've experienced lots of things. It still it strikes me that you still say though that you are a skeptic. You know, from that have all of these not changed you from being a skeptic? All of these experiences, or are you still very very skeptical?
I'm skeptical to the mainstream YouTube 100 video ghost sighting things because I can look at them and be like, that's fake.
Yeah.
I'm like, that has been so set up. Where's the real stuff? Where's the real magic? And I've dove deep into the occult years later. Um, and that's that story is unbelievable. Um, the power of the mind and what it can really do. So, but that's 10 years down the road when I was 30 years old. But I've had many, many experiences. And I want to tell you about another experience. So, yeah, I say I'm a skeptic, but I'm not a skeptic. Like, I'm skeptical to the point to where it's like, okay, Hollywood has hyped this up to the point to where or influences these young minds to where they think everything's freaking paranormal when it's not. Uh, and maybe that's just my judgment because of what I've experienced myself. It's like I've truly experienced these things that are unexplainable. I just can't explain them. And I tried. I tried so hard, like, man, over and over. But every time I would have one of these visions, and it gets deep, man, because you ready for another story?
Sure, sure.
Okay. Okay, so my brother, my younger brother, I started going to college for psychology. Now I was supposed to come over to England to finish in parapsychology because they don't offer that unless you go to Harvard in North Carolina or Harvard in the United States, and I couldn't afford that, you know. But I found a loophole to where I was able to get a scholarship to go to Edinburgh. I think it was Edinburgh, England, the college over there, where they offered a full parapsychology degree to where I could get into the metaphysical realms and begin to understand more in depth of the string theory and those type of things. Like when I was little, I used to tell people I was the same thing as a dresser, and people didn't understand me. It was like I could see quantum mechanics at a young child. But I didn't understand it at the time, and I wouldn't understand it for another 20 years. When I started diving in, really, really, I've read hundreds of books on string theory, quantum mechanics, quantum, all of it, um, trying to find an answer. Excuse me. So, my brother, we started Madison Paranormal, and had a couple good investigations. So I have this family graveyard, and I'm about 22 at the time, and I'm going through a hard time. My brother's about to go off to Navy, Uh, he had got accepted to the Naval Academy, which is huge, huge. And I was like, well, damn, my brother's going to be leaving. And like, he's the only one I can talk to this stuff about because he understands it. Because he experienced just as many things as I have. Um, And there's more stories in my past, but I can't get to all of them. So I'm going through this hard time. So I go down to this place called Gables Creek Baptist Church in Asheville, North Carolina. I moved to Asheville when my mom got sick with cancer. That's from Jacksonville, North Carolina, where my dad lived. And so I go to this church. And this is the first time. And I'm crying. I don't know why I'm crying. I'm just an emotional mess, I guess you would say. Like, and I had some other stuff going on with my mother. I wasn't sure she was going to live or die. And I go to this church and I'm like praying and I'm just asking God or higher power or universe, for help. And I'm sitting on the back steps. Now, if I wish I could show you a picture of this church. I actually have it on my YouTube channel that goes around the whole church to where you can see it if you ever want to look at it. So go sit down and I explained this whole story in this video. So I sit down on these back steps, and there's no one at this church, and it's my family graveyard. My great aunt lives just right up the road. She owns the grounds, actually. She owns all of it, and there's my great great grandmother's house, my great 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 grandmother's house, like old 1800 houses from the 1800s, 1700s, from when they first settled in North Carolina. So it's littered with these old, ancient, abandoned houses that are like way back in the boondocks. But then you come up to the church, and it's like surrounded by woods like this, and they're like there's these trails you can get to these houses. But anyways, I'm sitting on the back step of the church, and I'm asking for guidance. I walk back around the church, and there's no wind. No wind. I walk back around the church, and the front door is completely wide open. The front door is just completely wide open. And I'm like, that's impossible. It's like, there's no one here. I was like, how is this door open? So I walk into the church, and I jiggle the handle, and the handle's locked. And I'm like, how is this even possible? And I'm like trying to reconcile it in my brain, like, well, maybe it was pressure, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, but there's no explanation for it. And if you saw the picture, you'd understand what I'm talking about. Like, there's no way that door, like, and this is just a simple paranormal experience. Like, there's no way something opened that door. And I'm convinced to it to this day. And that's the day that I walked into that church, and I hit my knees in that church and just prayed out to a higher. I'm not a Christian, so like I just pray to God. I'm not a big Jesus guy. I love Jesus, but I love his teachings, but I don't consider him my savior or God. Far from it.
So what do you think your journey is then? I mean, is there a destination? Is there something that you've still got to achieve? I mean, I know you've talked about writing books and poetry and things like this, but is there a culmination to all your experiences, or what you intend to do? Because obviously you're on the podcast talking about it now, so I obviously know that you want to get the message out.
Yeah, I do because my story is so it's intense.
Yeah, I can
Like
feel
I
that
have,
you've probably got another 100 stories that you could tell us as well, if you really wanted to. But you
no,
know,
I mean I've got stuff that's just downright creepy. Um,
but there's a broader picture here, isn't there? There's obviously something that you want to get out of this.
yeah, there is, and I don't know what it is yet. And I think maybe one day I'll write my finish. I've written several books. I've never published a book, and I'm writing one now called "I Am the Ritual," which teaches you how to be in tune with your body and to keep that third eye open. Um, because all around us there's influences constantly, and you've got to become your own man, and you've got to be your own man to understand um, what is really going on. Like, you got to block out the outside influences. You have to. Like, there's no other way to learn what's real and what's not real. Which has been my goal my whole life. Like, skeptical, yes, but I know it's real. There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind with what I've experienced. Like, just like the simple door opening. That's just one of. There's that. Then there was like the time I went there and I sat on the back steps just like I did that time, and then the whole chorus playing in the church. Children singing, children playing, and there's nobody there. Like, absolutely nobody there. Nobody. I mean, this is in the boondocks, man. And I remember it was on a Wednesday afternoon. And I thought maybe they were having choir practice. And so I didn't want to run up to my aunt's house to grab a key, so I jimmied the door. And I went inside, and there's nobody there. And I'm like, I just heard the pianos playing. I just heard children singing, top of their lungs. And I walk around this whole church, and there's nothing there. Now, that right there was 100% proof, whether it's residual, whether it's somebody trying to relay a message, that this is real. Like, this is real shit.
Okay, well,
and that made me, excuse my language, that made me a believer. That right there is what set it in stone for me. When I start into my skepticism, I reflect back on that moment in my life, and I'm like, you can't deny that. I can't deny that. Like, I just can't. But go ahead, you were going to ask me something.
No, I was just going to ask Katz if he had any questions for anything that we've heard up to now.
Well, how long does this podcast go for?
Well, yeah, because we've got to do a start and an intro and an outro. So I was thinking that we could maybe ask a couple of questions and then maybe wrap this one up, but also sort of like try and lead into some places where people can find you, what they can, where you, what your plans are going forward, kind of thing.
Well, I did want to tell one more story, if I
Sure.
can, really fast.
Yeah, sure. Fire away.
Because like, there's so much more. I want to tell the story about my younger brother, and well, there's two stories where where I had a light save me. Literally, a light saved me. A ghost saved me, or a spirit, or whatever. When I went into a seizure, and yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. And this light came over me and told me to wake up, that I had this purpose. And I can remember waking up, puking all over the place, and the radio cutting on, playing Bob Marley's song, playing the Redemption song by Bob Marley. And it was like 3:00 in the morning. And this is when I was like 24 years old. So that story is much deeper, and it gets into like, I have, at this point in my life, I have all these like people who are like basically think I'm a fucking guru. Literally, excuse my language, I apologize. They think I'm like some sort of guru. Anyway, so I just wanted to touch on that, but what I really wanted to touch on is the dreams before my brother's death. My brother, we lived in this apartment together, and this is back in 2010. It's been 10 years now. And I kept dreaming that he was going to die, like, over and over in my head. I kept dreaming he was going to die from an overdose, drug overdose. So anyways, long story short, he ends up going back to the beach. I was his caretaker for a while to stay with my parents because he was pretty sick with his Crohn's disease. And I kept begging him not to come back to the Asheville, because Asheville is not the best place to be if you're in recovery. There's heroin everywhere, and he was on pain medication, and I kept having this dream. I had a dream that I was speaking at all these rehabs all over the world, telling my story, with my addictions and getting clean and the battles with it. And I kept having these dreams. And he calls me up from Eastern North Carolina, saying, man, I just finally got my disability. And I had been supporting him for about 2 years while I was in college. He lived with, we did have separate apartments, but he ended up moving in with me. And I had this dream that he was dying in a bathtub, and I kept pulling him out of the bathtub trying to resuscitate him. And then he died. He died, and everything that I dreamt about came true. He died. It was an unintentional drug overdose. Like, he was on fentanyl and Klonopin, and it wasn't intentional. He didn't want to die. He didn't go shoot up, and he took him as I guess. I wasn't there that night. I came in and found him dead. But I knew it was coming. So I say this because, something has warned me my entire life. My entire life I've been given signs, warnings, and it goes so much deeper than this, man. Like, in meditations and auras and being able to read cards and all that crap. And people still beg me for readings to this day. Like, it's crazy, man. It's absolutely crazy. You call that paranormal, call it what you will, but I call it a warning from something a much higher intelligent being than me, communicating with me, warning me, preparing me, just like with my grandmother's death. Yeah, man. So that trips me out, because we had discussed his death. Like, I can remember him looking in the mirror and being like, man, I see the angels. And I'm like, dude, you're nuts. It's like we both knew it was coming. We both knew it was coming, and he was 25 years old. And that nearly killed me. You know what I'm saying? Like, at that point in time, that nearly killed me. I dropped out of school and everything. And then I have another story, but we probably don't have time for that. But
No, fire away. Yeah, you've got time.
I do.
Yeah.
All right, let's fast forward 6 years. So I still have paranormal experiences, and I still have even in my house. It's like spirits follow me, or whatever you want to call it. I freaked my brother out. Dude, so many people have been freaked out. I had someone yanked off my couch. And me, I laugh it off, but I got to tell this story because I told you, I dove a lot into the occult, into magic, into to where I formulated from the Sumerian Codex, some from the Emerald tablets, the Thoth tablets, stuff from the Emerald tablets, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Sumerian Codex, the Awen, and all these ancient, spellcraft stuff. And I came up with this ritual for me and my ex-wife. And I have to say this because we did this blood binding in a church at midnight on October 31st. There was a full moon too. So we did this blood binding, and I only known this chick for 3 weeks. I just got out of a 4.5 year relationship with a millionaire. This chick was
Wow.
my rebound girl. Okay. So like she was my rebound chick, and I knew I shouldn't have been doing this, but I did this inside the Gables, the same church that I had the paranormal experiences, because I knew that there was power there. So I do this ritual, and I know this all sounds cuckoo and crazy as hell. Um, so I do this ritual with her, and we make love on the altar, blah blah blah. Um, she cheated on me, um, and um, that's when I burned everything I ever owned that had to do with anything with paranormal, spellcraft, anything, because of the aftermath of that. Because I don't know what I conjured in that church to this day. Um, I know it sounds crazy, man. It sounds absolutely nuts. I know it does. Um, but the things that happened to her, and when she broke that spell binding and cheated on me with my nephew, I was gone. Had done this Appalachian Trail. I was gone for 3 months. 3 months. I was gone for 3 months hiking this Appalachian Trail, doing like shamanic meditation, and I was in like this shamanic group too. So, which I started back in, I can't remember what year it was. It was like 2012, 13, something like that. But anyways, she ended up paralyzed. When I came home, I remember them driving by me, and in my mind, I thought, "Pop the tire," and the tire popped. And you call me crazy, call me what you will. It happened. I thought it happened. And then I went back to that place of meditation where, like, when I first found out she was cheating on me, I went into this like deep, dark, angry meditation to where I was like trying to shake their house, and people could say portals or whatever. Uh, and I scared them to death. Like my nephew and my ex-wife are convinced I'm the devil. Um, are convinced, literally, because my mother called me. I remember my mother called me and she said to me the day I found out, like about 2 days after I found out, and I had done this meditation. She goes, "What did you do?" I was like, "What do you mean, Mom?" She's like, "What did you do?" She goes, "Billy, you know you're not supposed to do that." How my mom knows this shit is beyond me. Um, is beyond me. She's like, "What did you do?" She goes, "You know you're not supposed to do that." And I was like, "Okay. What do you mean I'm not supposed to do that?" She cheated on me. But anyways, long story short, um, that tire popped, and then 2 days later, she was paralyzed from the waist down. Um, no, call that coincidence, call it what you will. She was in a high-speed car chase with my nephew. Call it what you will, I don't know. But, it took me a long time to come to terms with that from the ritual, because I warned her. I warned her, I was like, "If you break this binding, if you want to sleep with someone else, tell me so I could break this binding. Because I don't want you to get hurt." And it's exactly what happened. Um, so I no longer do those kinds of things. I haven't done those things in many, many, many years. I mean, I have for small things, but I'm not a witch or a war. I don't consider myself a witch, warlock, psychic, empath. I don't know what the fuck I am. All I know is my life has been a journey of understanding that I am the ritual. Like you don't need all these spells and all that crap. Everything comes from within. Um, I know that it's not really paranormal, but like there's a lot of paranormal stuff tied into that, because I firmly believe that they were influenced by evil spirits of some sort that I brought upon myself through ancient magic stuff. Ancient ancient magic, man. I was using some pretty powerful stuff, man. Stuff I made myself, created myself. So call it coincidence. I don't know. I don't know if it's paranormal. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But I do know it's very real.
What,
And they burn.
what do you say, Cats? What do you say, Cats, to this? Have you got
Well,
any
it's a brilliant
questions?
story. All right. Well, sorry, good question. Well, I just wanted to touch on what you said there, because it is a fantastic story, isn't it? And like you say, could you call it coincidence? Could you call it whatever? But if you're constantly doing something which then has a result, and then you do something else and it has a result, it's only so many times you can call it coincidence, isn't there? There's only so many times before you realize that it's probably not coincidence.
Exactly. That's my conclusion. That's why I don't do it no more. Not like that. If somebody comes to me, like the closest personal people come to me and they're like, "Hey man, will you do some energy healing on me? Will you, fix my back like a chiropractor almost?" But I use like Reiki and stuff like that. Stuff I've learned over the years. I've always had this crazy way of just manifesting some of the most insane people in my life who have knowledge far beyond me. Some very amazing teachers, authors, just really amazing teachers in my life. And I'm completely sane, man. I'm not crazy. And that's the kicker, It's like, I know I'm not crazy.
So what's your plans going forward then? Because obviously, I assume that a lot of these things are going to continue to happen to you, but you have said that you've documented them. You've written them down and what have you. What's the plan? What's the bigger plan in this? Are you going to try and release a series of books? What's your plans?
I'm afraid to release, in a sense, I'm afraid to release this knowledge. Because in the wrong hands, it could be very. People don't always have the best of intentions. And if you were able to master, meditation, chakra, aligning your chakras, and really being able to manifest these things, that in the wrong hands, it can really hurt somebody. So that scares me in a way, because I don't want any more bad karma. But at the same time, it's like we need to wake up to our truest potential, transcendence. We need to wake up, and I believe my higher power put me here from a young child to wake people up. And that's the constant battle I have right now as I'm writing this book, I Am the Ritual. I get into some pretty deep stuff. Like, hey, man, I can't tell you how to live your journey. It's experience. You have to experience it yourself. You can't just be natural at it. I mean, everyone has their potential, but it takes a lot of preparation, meditation, and so forth to get to the place where I am at in life. And I'm still learning. Like, my house is haunted right now, and I can't get it to stop. Somebody keeps knocking on my door at 3:00 in the damn morning. Makes no sense. Scared my brother half to death. My other brother, when he came and stayed. My buddy Pete won't even step foot in this house. He's terrified of this house.
Well, do you have a Do you have a blog or anything where you document all this stuff?
I don't, man. Like, I've been wanting to for a while. Like, I thought about investing in all the equipment for YouTube, like starting a YouTube channel and a vlog, and I did. I do have some videos. Like I said, 5 years ago. No, it's been 7 years now. I literally burnt probably 2,000 hours of footage after what happened with my ex-wife. Um, I was going to leave this past behind me, but I can't leave it behind me because it keeps happening. Um, it was a very powerful moment for me when I burnt all that stuff to release all that energy. Because I've been on so many investigations, man. I've been on a lot of investigations. I've been to some crazy, insane places that are really haunted. I've been to places that are like this place ain't haunted. It's all in their heads. Um, so yeah.
Any
So like
any questions there, Cats?
cats.
You muted, mate.
Yeah,
Sorry,
man,
I had the
think
microphone
what
on
you guys
mute.
are doing. I didn't know if this was a joke or a scam. On Reddit, I was like, I have a hell of a story to tell, man. I tell you what. But like I said, I do have some stuff on my page, Poetic Confessions, um, and a lot of that's slam poetry stuff. But I do have some ghost stuff on there. Um,
Well, hopefully this will be a segue into your own YouTube journey if you ever decide to put more of your stories out.
Man, I've been thinking about it for months and months and months and months and months to get all these YouTubers out there who think it kills me, dude. Um, when I watch some of this stuff on TV, I'm like, man, they have no idea. Not to be arrogant by any means. Some of it may be real, some of it's convincing. Some of it I think is real, but most of it I think is garbage. 100% garbage.
Well, we'll do our
Um,
best to get your story out. That's what I can say.
Absolutely, it's been a really fascinating time chatting with you, and the fact that you've experienced so many different things in so many genres, but you've maintained a skeptical attitude throughout it as well is really, is to me is really interesting. It shows that you're not willing to believe just any old thing. That you've got an attitude that you're going to be rational about what you experience, which is great.
yeah, man. Yeah,
So,
definitely.
give us some plugs then. Give us where people can find you, what your name of your book is, etc. like that.
Well, I mean, like the book, I do have some stuff online written. It's on my Facebook page, man. It's called This Beautiful Mystery.
Sorry, is the Facebook page called A Beautiful
Oh
Mystery?
no, it's just Billy Green.
All right.
It's and then I have a couple. I have a lot of writing on there, but there's one. I've got This Beautiful Mystery. Then I've got Addiction Kills page, but they're linked on my Facebook page. But if you Google This Beautiful Mystery, and it's not a full book, it's just a few little inserts because I didn't want to put it all out there until I publish it. Because it's a full book, it's like 400 something pages, and I've only have like little inserts, like literally. I didn't want to give it all away.
Yeah, that seems fair enough. And what I'll do is I'll try and link up your Facebook page if you can send me a link to it.
Yeah, man, most definitely, yeah. This Beautiful Mystery, and if they want to check me out on YouTube and check out that church I was talking about, I have a 40-minute video of that it shows the footage of the church.
And what's your YouTube channel? What's your YouTube channel called?
It's Poetic Confessions.
Okay, cheers.
And I can send you links to those. So, That'd be cool, man. I don't have very many subscribers. I think I got like 5. I just started this channel a couple months ago. Like, I wasn't taking it too seriously, but my other channel's got a lot of subscribers. Over 1,000. But that's music stuff from my music days, performing. Anyways.
Well, thanks for stopping by and telling us your stories and giving us a little bit of an insight. I don't want to have you here all day telling us everything, because you don't want to unload everything. You know, you want people to come over and, you know, listen to what you've got to say over on your platforms, and you know that's what we're trying to do here, is segue into that, where you know people have listened to a bit of what you've had to tell them, and then if they feel that, oh, I want to listen to more of this guy, then hopefully when you start releasing content on your own channel, you know, you'll start reaping the benefits there.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. Like, I'm a historian buff too, so like I talk a lot about ancient civilizations and tying it all in together. So
cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Man,
Well, that
maybe go on and start a page.
that was awesome, mate. You know, fire us any links to anything that you want in the description of the podcast. Just whack them on Skype to us. Now I've had this call, put them in the chat, and we'll make sure they're on the description. But this has been it's been awesome. There's so much there for us to talk about. I really, really appreciate that, mate. It's been absolutely fantastic.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right.
Thanks. Well, you guys have a blessed day.
And you as well.
Too.
And get some sleep after last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It was a rough night.
All right, mate.
See you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.